and Region 8 has been blessed by this wonderful initiative of the government, whose intention we hear from the President's voice is to have a radio station in all our capital towns in our regions. Something that we have been longing for. We're excited at this time to be part of this. Our hunger for knowledge and information, which is a challenge now, will be somewhat eased because of the information that will be given out from this radio. I stand today a proud resident of this community because of this great asset to our community. It will benefit the business community, it will benefit the students, it will benefit the residents generally on this information that we will soon be hearing in a while, which is already on the air. We know that our quality of education, our quality of business, our quality of life in this region will now be once again up in the lines of information. So today I just want us to be reminded that based on information from Dr. Diodat, who said that our station here and all its equipment costs over $21 million, which they said is one of the best.
Radio Mahdia is part of a dream, a vision, a conception of the gentleman sitting in the center of the table here, where one day back in September, well, it goes further than that, but I'd give you the latest episode. In September of 2015, we sat down to have an initial talk. I merely went there to wish him all the best as Prime Minister. And he said, no, hold on, we got work to do. And we started talking immediately about radio stations all around Guyana. Not radio stations per se, but communication connections between the various regions of Guyana and parts that have been isolated and marooned almost. Information marooning, one might call it, where they don't know what's going on at the center until a week later, maybe longer, when the newspapers finally filter down from the RC's office to whoever gets it. And that was the thought. So what was the quickest way of doing that bridging? And we thought radio. And we thought feeding the voice of Guyana, which is supposed to be, Mr. Cornett, the best of the lot at NCN, and we'll talk 2 minutes on that just now, sir, with your permission, to the outlying areas, but particularly with news, with current affairs, with sports, with things that are happening in the Parliament of Guyana, with all kinds of developmental and cultural and national events. As they get them on the coast, you get them here in Letham, in Mabaruma, in Aishalton, in Oriala, in Bartica, in all those places in Anai, where Radio Pimac is situated. And look, I mean, it's not been long in the life and attempts of development in Guyana. We're here, Mr. Prime Minister, about what? 3 years later, 2 years later, with that realization almost complete, because the rest of the stations will be established by the end of this year. But that's not the end of the story. The story continues, because not only will you be able to hear and get on a 24-hour basis a link to the voice of Guyana, but progressively you should be able, each of these standalone stations, because that's what they are, they can transmit themselves 24 hours a day without any hindrance from Voice of Guyana. But we will then start progressively, because the young people and not so young people need to be trained, and that will take time, and we don't want to put half-baked broadcasters on. And so maybe an hour first, 2 hours, 3 hours by next year, 5 hours, 6 hours a day. And those hours will be spent in promoting your lifestyle, your culture, your events, your activities, your news.
Mahdia Radio, broadcasting on 95.1 megahertz, represents a significant milestone in the development of Guyana's public information infrastructure for the electronic media. It's a very significant occasion because it is the first that such a project has been a reality in this region. It is significant because it's part of a bigger project, a project that will realize 4 radio stations being established before the end of the year. I was talking to one of the residents just now, and she said to me that I will not feel locked in anymore. And she's smiling there. I think Jagger's right, she's waving me. She said, I will not feel locked in anymore. I will not feel isolated because radio will become my friend. I will tune in and I will listen to what is going on. And that is why this radio station is important. It is filling a communication gap and an information need of residents to have timely information. And so NCN is pleased to be instrumental in this Government of Guyana initiative, which is being led and directed by no other than Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu, who himself is a journalist by blood, by feeling, by instinct, and anything else you can think about, he's a writer.
Many, many years ago, I invited, when I first became a minister in charge of information, I invited specialists who came from abroad. And they advised that we need to have a communication network that should cover all of Guyana. That too many of our people are cut off from information about their own country. Radio is very important, not only for entertainment, not only for sports, culture, language, music. It is also important as a means by which you can learn about environmental changes, climate change, dangers in your environment, and you could also know that your country is doing all that is possible to make life better for the entire population. More importantly, however, has been the concern that a foreign country by name Venezuela has claimed 5/8 of Guyana. And we have Guyanese living in some of our regions who could access Spanish language radio communication and not anything from Guyana. And so we need radio as part of our security, of our territory, part of our border protection, part of developing consciousness among us all, wherever we may be, that we are Guyanese. And that is the reason why when I listened to the school children this morning greeting us at the airstrip, I asked that they sing the song again, Born in a Land, that we know that we are all Guyanese and we are all born here. We all intend to live here. We all intend to prosper here. And we all intend to to protect our country and our country's asset to pass on to the future generation. So radio is important for patriotism. Radio is important to remind us who we are, Guyanese, irrespective of our ethnicity, irrespective of cultural differences. We are first and foremost Guyanese. And our Guyana, all 83,000 square miles, 15,000 square kilometers, belong to us. Guyana is ours. And that is why you will be hearing from now on a regular basis, songs that remind you of our great beloved motherland. The song, Not a Blade of Grass, Not One Kuras. We need to remind you about that and remind ourselves. You will notice that on the radio Mahdia, there's a caricature of an individual with a bateau. It's a batik, you call it a bateau? Batel. Sorry about that. With two shining clumps of gold. At one time when I look at the small version, I thought that the hat looked like a sombrero that the Mexicans will use when they want to go to sleep. But I was told that that's typical headwear for our pork knockers. And you have a very distinct symbol of your radio station. Your own radio station reminds you constantly of your richness, of your potential, of your gold and your diamond, which makes you proud in this region as distinct from other regions. The reach of this station should be in the environment, the surrounding communities, Campbelltown, Mycobie, Murua, El Paso, and also what we need to mention is that some 75 to 100 small and large mining camps would access Radio Mahdia just with one of these small radio set. And so, yes, also GGMC will be able to be in touch with miners, not only to tell them that they must come and pay their dues or to declare their goal and duly pay their royalties, but also there are things that miners constantly need to know, particularly about weather, particularly about safe mining, health issues, where there is an outbreak of any particular disease, what can be done, where they should go if you have outbreak of malaria, etc. You need constantly to use radio to remind people in hinterland communities, particularly remote mining camps, about what's going on in the country. Sometimes someone is needed to come out on the coast to go to court to serve as a juror. They need to know. Sometimes they have a case before the court and they have no other way of knowing. They need to know. And they need to know when their wives are going into hospital to deliver the next babies. Shortly we will commission Radio Bartica, Radio Aishalton, and Radio Oriala. The indigenous peoples of our country, whether you chose to describe yourself as 9 tribes or the 9 nations of Guyana, they form the bulk of the hinterland population, the bulk of Amerindian peoples in various parts of Guyana. And they have to be provided with what I consider to be accelerated development. Very quickly, you have to be brought into the mainstream of the life of Guyana, or else you'll be cut off and you'll be left behind. And this policy of our government to have radio station is not by itself an end. We would like to provide the facilities that you enjoy television in all the hinterland communities of Guyana. And we are exploring, and I'm sure the next time you see Dr. Devdat, he'll be telling you that we are exploring the possibilities of using and renting time on a satellite to be able to send signals. NCN, Lennox Cornet will tell you how it is done, that we are sending out signals, television signals, to 16 locations in Guyana for what is called a learning channel. And soon we'll put some other programs, national programs on the learning channel, so that you can be informed about what is taking place in your country. We have started many, many years ago a pilot scheme which was called Radio Piomac in the heart of Guyana, in the Iracrama region. And that pilot project came when I first coordinated with UNESCO and some of the persons connected to Iracrama that we need to develop an indigenous language station so that the Amerindian communities can speak to themselves, entertain themselves in their own language, in their own songs, in their own culture. They must be comfortable with who they are and be proud of who they are. Now, there is a regular monthly newspaper that is published by the Department of Public Information by the Ministry of the Office of the Prime Minister that focuses only on hinterland news, on things that are happening in the hinterland, so that you cannot be misinformed about what is taking place in your communities. Years ago, and it is so long that sometimes I myself, I tend to forget how long it had taken for Hinterland Highlight to be published. I used to, in 1969, 1970, rolled off on one sheet a bulletin called Interior Special. And when I became an editor, sub-editor, or junior editor of a newspaper, I insisted on a 4-page that was headed Interior Special. And when I became the Minister of Information, I started to, well, I gave directions that we should have a dedicated newspaper for the hinterland, which is called the Hinterland Highlights, so that radio and television would not be the only platforms by which you would be part and parcel of the information communication flow in Guyana. We are looking all around how it is possible to link our communities. So with these remarks, I want to let you know that radio for you is important not only because of cultural reasons. You need to create a market for what you produce. And you will learn afterward to advertise or to promote your produce so that others can hear and they can come and stimulate your interest to buy what you produce. In Mahdia, products that you like, whether it is necklaces or whether it is hammocks that you would like to advertise, whether it is kazarip, you'd like the world to know that you have certain specific products you like to put on the market. Mahdia is a very large part of Guyana. You are, if Guyana is a, most time it looks like a beautiful woman, right? Mahdia is the heart this region, Pataro region, is the heart of Mahdia. So we have today a very historic celebration, and I want to thank all of those persons whose names have been mentioned before for playing their part in bringing about this dream of a radio station in this region, Pataro Siperuni. For those of you who didn't detect the voice, you have heard greetings from His Excellency President David Granger. And it is President Granger who gave us the direction when we came into office that we should be able to link the coast with the interior, to link the coast with hinterland areas, to be able to erase the difference that exists between two sections of our population, those who think that they are enjoying the life of modern amenities on the coastal area, and those who feel they have been left behind because they have been considered to be children of the forest, bush people. We don't entertain any such derisive description of any set of our people, any part of our population. We are all one Guyanese people, and we have to be able to develop the mechanisms, the means by which we can forge our unity, we can forge our commonness. And so for me today, Radio Mahdia is a journey that has been complete, a promise fulfilled, and I want you to enjoy, sit back, relax, and enjoy Radio Mahdia.
Slowly being unveiled, Prime Minister assisted by Mrs. Nagamutu and Mrs. Garidolo, and it is unveiled. The thanks to Radio Mahdia 95.1 FM and NCN Regional Radio Station, commissioned by the Honorable Moses V. Nagamutu, Prime Minister and First Vice President, Sunday the 8th of October, 2017.